sir. For you guys, and there are a lot of new faces out there this evening, to me at least. I am Mike Walters. I am Whiskey 8 Zulu Yankee, and I live up here in Connecticut land where nobody knows how to make biscuits and gravy. It's been a challenge, my wife and I, for years now. But I have an 8 call sign because I grew up in West Virginia, and now I'm in one world, and I've been up here, as I said, about 15 years. I was in Texas for about 8 years, and the guys down there with 5 call signs, nobody understood me either. So I go back, I've been doing ham radio now for 43 years. So to some of you guys, I'm still a newbie. And I've been in some sort of communication, some sort of radio most of my life, including a little time in the military, in the Army, and spending a lot of time in commercial radio stations. I'm currently the SEC for Connecticut, and I have the great advantage of living about 10 miles up the road from Rusty Slabicki, who is the Red Cross guy who I think came up with this whole idea. And as they say, no good deed goes unpunished. So Rusty wanted someone to take over this role in planning this event just about 3 weeks ago. So I got an email and it said, we want you to drop in on a phone call or on a Teams call. And when I got on the call with him, it was him and another gentleman from Red Cross, and their intention was to coerce me into taking this role because they felt like I was expedient. I'm not sure exactly what that means, but I wound up with it. So I'm trying to do the coordination to get this drill for the 30th off the ground. And of course, as you guys probably have noticed, every time an email goes out, it gets a little more complicated. I'm trying to hold the reins on it, not getting too complicated and not getting out of our hands. So let me walk through the basic scenario, and then you guys can give me some feedback, or I hope I can answer some questions this evening. The drill will take place entirely on May 30th, one day, a Saturday. It will start typically here in Connecticut. It's going to start about 9 a.m. and the drill is actually divided into 2 components. And this I inherited from the Red Cross plans that were already in place. What they're calling Part A is all of the local component, and that's where most of us as SECs will come in. The local component is trying to set up an exercise, something at the local level, and I told them right from the very start, there's no way in hell that I can put together a local level exercise that can be executed effectively in every section across the country. So I'm leaving that up to you guys. Whatever you want to do, as long as you follow the basic principles of creating a local net, simulating, and I'm stressing the word simulating because most of us are still under COVID-19 restrictions, so we're not able to get out and activate shelters and EOCs and that sort of thing. Here in Connecticut, all of that stuff is locked down. We won't be able to get into any of our EOCs, quite frankly. I want you to simulate the idea that you're opening, the Red Cross is opening shelters, and we're producing messages. Now, because this is a drill that they want to run across the country, I don't need every section to create 100 messages. You know, a half a dozen or a dozen messages from a section is more than enough, because this whole thing is a proof of concept between Aries and the Red Cross. Now, to give you guys a little background, this was an idea that was created by the Red Cross. Some of the guys that are hams within the Red Cross organization came up with this plan. They originally thought there would be about 24 people involved. And if you look on this call, you can see there's a few more people involved right now. So we have quite a mess of folks out there, and I'm trying to keep it from getting so complicated that we don't do anything. So part A, the beginning piece. Part A is create those or open those local nets, simulate traffic from a Red Cross shelter or an office. And I expect that most people are going to do this from their home stations. Some people are going to do it from mobile. Some people are going to do it, you know, they're going to get creative. They're going to take their Go Kit and go out to a park and set it up. However you want to do it. Now, ultimately, what we would love to see is the local nets created and producing traffic in WinLink format. Now, I know some of the sections across the country will tell me we don't really use WinLink. We use HF Digital. We use FL Digi. We use FL Message. I don't care. I want you to produce a few messages that way. So create those messages and pass them along. Now, right now, we're in the middle of identifying who are going to be about a dozen or 15 stations across the country that are going to be essentially the regional clearinghouse stations. Now, this is part B of the exercise. The local stuff will take place Saturday morning for about 3 hours. It's up to you guys how long you want to do it. Some of you are going to run it earlier. Some are going to run it a little later in the morning. About 2 or 3 hours is all it should take. Create a net, because there shouldn't be a whole lot of traveling involved in this, because everything is simulated. You know, create those nets or open those nets. Most of you have existing nets already. Create the traffic and then pass it to someone who can then pass it to these clearinghouse stations. So my suggestion would be every section, every SEC should look at identifying a couple of stations who can be your local clearinghouses that can then forward to the regional clearinghouses. Okay. The afternoon section, or the afternoon part of the drill, part B, they called it, is basically those messages are going to be delivered, and each clearinghouse will then make an effort to either forward those messages or also prepare a report that says, from this region, we had operators active and we created so many messages, and those reports will come back to us. Now, there's some online stuff being created by the Red Cross that we should have here in a couple of days, and I can get out to you guys. One of them is a registration form. Now, nobody has to sign up to be a Red Cross volunteer. You don't have to give them any in-depth information, none of that stuff. All we're doing is we're trying to use a Red Cross function that they already have to basically create a map of the U.S. to show where the operators are. So when we do the after action report and the Red Cross guys get to go up to their Red Cross leadership, they want to be able to show a map that says all of these red dots across the country are operators that were active in this event. So that you'll be able to fill out the registration form online. You'll put in the info of, you know, who you are and where you are, and that will put you into that database. Now, the database will only be kept for this exercise. We're not keeping it, as I said, nobody's registering to be a Red Cross volunteer or any of that stuff, so you don't have to worry about them gathering a lot of information on you individually. This will give us that readout. Also, the regional clearinghouses will fill out reports that will say, you know, we had this many messages passed and this many arrived at the regional clearinghouse. Now, my opinion is always that those messages don't have to go all the way to the top, because in a real emergency, the national leadership at Red Cross should not care if the shelter in Grapevine, Texas needs diapers. That should be handled by a local entity. So we shouldn't have to worry about passing all of those individual messages up. We just need to show a volume of messages. So that's what we're trying to do. And then all of that stuff will be collected up at the end by myself and a couple of folks on this steering committee for the Red Cross group. Just to be blunt, I'm not a Red Cross volunteer at all. I'm an Aries guy, and I work full time, so I don't have time to do the Red Cross these days. So that's the basic idea, and I know there's still some holes in there, but you know, we're trying to put this thing together as we go. And I know that you know, I've gotten feedback from a couple of folks already that with suggestions, and we love suggestions, but we're only going to be able to get so much out of this one because, quite frankly, I got thrown into this at the last minute. We're going to do the best we can with this drill, and hopefully the next one down the road will be able to do a little more planning. So Dan, I'm open for questions. What do folks have on their minds?
Okay. Anybody got some questions out there? Raise your hand. Okay, go ahead, Max.
Yeah, good evening, Max, KE8DON in Michigan. Interesting concept here. I have a couple of questions just for clarification. You said that you would preferred WinLink, but you would accept other formats. Does that include voice?
Absolutely. You know, at the local level, you know, you guys, I hope you guys are getting those emails that I sent out.
Yes.
At the local level, you know, I expect guys are going to use voice. They're going to use, you know, they're going to use sideband. They're going to use digital. They're going to use whatever they have available. And I know across the country, there's going to be a variety of formats used. So the point is that once it gets up to those regional clearinghouses, that's where we're going to try to keep everything either in WinLink or in email format.
Okay, so you're expecting standardization of medium to take a mode to take place at that level.
Yeah, at that level, not at the individual level. There's no way to do that.
Now, for the messages themselves, are you anticipating just one of their welfare requests or any particular form of a message from a Red Cross format perspective? Typically,
if you look at, say, in WinLink, if you look at the formats that are available, there are ARC 213s.
Okay.
There is a shelter report and a requisition report. It's basically, this is what we need for the shelter kind of thing. Okay. I think you know, those are going to be the big ones. I would love to say that, you know, if it were up to me, and again, because this is a Red Cross operation, and I always refer back to the idea that we as Aries support our served agencies in the formats that they want.
Yep.
If it were up to me, we'd be doing all of this in ICS 213s, but this is a Red Cross drill. So they want it in Red Cross formats, and so those should all be available either in WinLink or in FL Message.
So if somebody isn't, okay, they would be available in FL Message as well. Yep. So the idea is that if somebody is going to do a voice relay of a message or voice insertion of a message, they should get familiar with the format of the message from FL Message or by looking in WinLink first so that they know the structure of that content.
Yeah, all of those formats are available. If you just go online and search for them, you can find the formats themselves and print out the PDFs, and it's not a lot different than passing a radiogram or anything like that.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. I'm sure I had another question in here, but I can't read my handwriting anymore. So I'm just going to pass it along for now.
Okay, Dan, W8L7CO, you had your hand up. I got you muted, so let me unmute you. Go ahead.
Okay. Gary, thank you for taking this on. My condolences for how you got thrown into it. And was there any discussion whatsoever about what the goals and objectives for Aries is in this exercise? It was originally billed as a combined communications exercise. So I'm just curious about, I mean, I don't mind being a red dot on a Red Cross map, but I've been there, done that too many times.
Yep.
Think
Well,
that
I tell you,
maybe we're overreaching, or they're overreaching, calling us participants.
well, I think at this point, you know, the way I was conned into this or persuaded to become a participant in this was I said, listen, this is the way I understand it. Obviously, we're supporting the Red Cross, but we're showing the capabilities of Aries. You know, Red Cross always likes to tout the idea that, oh yeah, we you know, we can come into any emergency and do anything, but they don't have the background, they don't have the facilities to do this. So my intention is to show from the league point of view just how valuable Aries is at this point to Red Cross, but to anybody who tries to do an event like this or tries to do something like this.
Shouldn't we,
I
as
know it's not a, go
I'm
ahead.
sorry, I didn't interrupt you. Go ahead, please.
Well, you know, as I said, this is not a perfect scenario. And I think at this point, it's a matter of we're just trying to get the best shine on this that we can in the short amount of time that we have. Moving forward, I would love to do a more elaborate exercise that shows off what Aries can actually do. But at this point, yeah.
That's what I'm trying to address. Shouldn't we as SECs get our act together and do a national communications exercise that's compliant with the architecture imposed on all emergency communicators in the country professionally,
Yep.
and make sure we can do that, and then invite the Red Cross to participate however they want in us moving traffic on that same day?
I think that's, you know, that's a great plan. But I'm not convinced that we can pull it off in a couple of weeks.
No one will ever accuse me of making a great plan, and this will never happen by May 30th.
Oh no, that's what I'm saying. At this point, we're going to have, like I said, we're going to have to polish this thing the best we can for the moment and plan for the next one.
Well, okay, Godspeed. You know, I'm just wondering if we're not setting a precedence that's going to cause us a lot of damage when we could be getting our act together.
Well, I think we're on the situation of taking what we've got and do the best we got with it here, Dan.
Okay, I'm willing.
Okay, good. Yeah, let's move on. Next go around, we can do things. There's a whole lot more we can do. Okay, I'm looking at two different screens.
Well, yeah, let's try them.
Okay, go ahead.
All right, Mike, this is Robert, Illinois.
Yep.
We were approached by a few people from the American Red Cross, and I'm going to get the breakdown of its region, division, chapter, I think. Not quite sure. But in any case, these were Illinois American Red Cross individuals, and I want to level set what I heard from them from what I heard from you.
Okay.
So they were talking about on the 30th in Part A, setting up some form of interconnection or networking to allow their 6 chapter houses to talk to each other, and perhaps even some of their blood donation centers to talk to each other. And that was the kind of thing they'd like to see as a stretch goal. I guess their goal was, let's get one chapter to talk to another chapter, and then let's add the rest of them. There are 6 chapters basically in Illinois, and 2 blood donation centers in the Illinois region division, whatever it's called. So we said, okay, that'll be Part A. And then we started hearing things about, well, can we get some people in Part B to simulate shelters and put shelter messages in? And that's when I started getting lost. Okay, you can simulate a shelter, that's great, but what are we doing? I mean, are we just acting like here I am at the corner of Walk and Don't Walk and I need some cots or what. And I kind of, so like I said, it got kind of confusing. Then of course, this whole aggregation of messages, we are going to actually do our spring set the same day to keep most of our Aries members active between 9 and 3 on that same day. So we're going to be building our own communications testing and all the rest of it. So let's back up. So part A, a chapter to chapter kind of thing. Is that coinciding with what you were thinking part A was?
What my thought is that part A is going to be a little different in different parts of the country. So in Illinois, it sounds like you've got a plan that's going to work just fine. You've already got part A figured out. Now it's just a matter of reporting up through part B and saying, yeah, we've already done this piece. You don't necessarily have to say, okay, we're creating a shelter and we need we need cots, like you said. If your messages say, this chapter is talking to that chapter and you're passing, greetings back and forth, to me, that's fine.
Okay.
That says you're already fulfilling part A just fine. And then take those messages or create messages to move up through part B. You've got it pretty well figured out.
And so part B, well, I don't know that I do, but I was listening carefully to what they were suggesting on the Red Cross side. Then we would be, and we do a lot of RDOP and some other things with HF inside the state. And we're talking about sending messages to a nexus or a node. And would that particular station or stations in Illinois try to send to your clearinghouse, or would they send it to someone else? And it, in the northern region or whatever the Red Cross grouping is called, and they would send it over to, I guess it's Virginia, maybe.
No, your aggregate station that you're talking about will be the one to forward to the clearinghouse.
And that would be on our own Illinois aggregate station to the clearinghouse then.
Yes.
Well, that cleared up that. Tom, are you still with us? Tom Beebe. Okay, I think I'm getting it. By the way, it was Brian McDonald. I think that's his name. American Red Cross. I saw Brian come in from American Red Cross. He said, "My goodness, maybe that's one of the prerequisites to have the name Brian to be in the American Red Cross." But yeah, that's okay. I'm starting to get a picture here. This is good. Now you said one last roundup question. Something about the registration of people, red dots, and that. Thank you, Dan. Rather, I was thinking the same thing. How many red dots are we talking about per section, perhaps?
As many as you want. Once you see the registration form, and it's just a little website you go to either on your computer or on a phone, and you fill it out. Basically, it's your name and call sign and where you're located. And then it's got some other questions about whether you're going to operate HF or VHF and all that that's just statistical stuff.
And you will want that before the fact, not after the fact. So
either way, it can be either way. Reporting it does not have to be done, registration does not have to be done beforehand, but I would love to get every operator who participates to fill out a form of one sort or another.
Mike, can we have this thing documented and we'll put it out on the reflectors thing so that everybody has a copy, what you have in mind that might help some of the questioning this period and after?
Yeah, I mean, the stuff that I've put out on the reflector, quite honestly, is the things that I know already. So, and there's more stuff as new things come up and as I can clarify things, I intend to put them on both of the reflectors, the ARRL reflector and the groups.io group.
Good, so, along with the links and that kind of stuff, so these guys can
oh yeah, as soon as I have those links for the registration forms, I'll be sending that out and you guys can disseminate it to everybody in your section if you want.
Thank you, Mike. I appreciate it. That's me. Thanks, Dan.
Anybody else?
Marty out of Maryland.
John W8ZY.
Well, it looks like John, you beat him out.
You have two hands up.
Let's let John go first, and then we can get the other two hands. Stan,
Okay,
I saw
I'd
you.
like yeah, I'd like to comment on the W8ZY as far as taking the lead on this, and it's pretty intense. I understand. There's a lot of people involved in this thing here. Last year, I was involved in the scaled down version of this. My question is that all this effort that we're doing, everything, who at the Red Cross is going to really look at this? Because you look at a return of investment as far as all this time and everything everybody's putting into. We did something like that last year, okay, but we never saw anything came out of it other than an article in QST. I like to participate in the afterwash, not to be a negative person, but more or less a realistic type individual saying this is what I've seen. One quick comment as far as what my concern is, that we're all doing this from our ham shacks and everything, but when the real situation comes up, do we have people that are able to pull out their equipment out of their house, go set up, maybe run for about 16, 24 hours, then pull the equipment out because they don't want to leave it there, for some other ham that he or she don't know who it is. But I'm trying to be realistic here as far as I agree with what's going on here, and I think we should do it every year. In fact, this is timely to do this because, well, we got a tropical system out in the off Florida. So I think this should be a yearly thing, and with a committee as far as doing this, which I think there is already. But there's some concerns I do have as far as, and I won't take this up any further. What I like to see also is a topology as far as these regional stations and something like that. Pictures worth 1,000 words, and I think that will help kind of maybe clear up some of the concerns and questions that we have here. So that's all I have. Thank you, Dan.
Okay, we've got several hands up here. Stan, you had your hand up earlier on video. You want to go ahead? N8BHL in Ohio. Stan, NHBHL in Ohio. You're muted.
There we go. Sorry.
There you go.
We're stretched out pretty well in Ohio. Their first reaction when we contacted the local Red Cross was, what exercise?
Yeah.
Now both sides are pretty excited about it. This is a small time question, but I'm not real sure what the content of these messages, where that's going to come from. These 6409s and this and that were supposed to be originating from shelters. Do we make those messages up just off the cuff, or I kind of had an indication earlier that that was something that was going to come down to us. It makes no difference which. I just need to know what. Go ahead.
Yeah, Stan. One of the guys, as I said, we have the guy that got me involved in this, Rusty Slavicki, W2ROS, with the Red Cross. He has told me that he is generating basically suggested content. So you should get some content that will help you with that kind of stuff. And that should be, as soon as I can get that information, he's working on the action plan for this as well. And as soon as we have that, we'll be putting that out on the reflector, and you should be able to have, you're going to have to do some personalizing for any of the messages, but the basic content, the kind of stuff that needs to go in there. And again, I said, there's no reason to produce 100 messages. I think realistically, a fairly small amount of traffic will show the concept fairly well. So we're going to give you some suggested material.
Could you maybe
fine.
throw us some samples and such on the information you're putting on the reflector?
Yeah, as soon as I get some stuff, I'm gonna put it out there. We'll get it to you.
Thanks.
All right, we have quite a few hands up here, and unfortunately, alphabetically. Jim, in 7VR, you want to do it? You got your hand up.
Sure, I'll take it. Mike, we got a little bit more unusual situation out here in Montana. I'll tell you right off the bat that they were very excited to do this right up until it hit our Montana State Disaster Emergency Coordinator for Red Cross. And the problem here is, as he explained to me very succinctly, he already has shelters up. He already has things in operation because we have our EOCs up, we have our United Health Command up, and we actually have sheltering going in place for a lot of our homeless for the COVID-19. And the Red Cross is actually part of that here in Montana. So I'm getting the impression, or I got the impression earlier this afternoon when I was talking with Ted about it a bit, that they're not going to play here on the 30th. But he had a question that he asked me, and so I'm going to ask it of you: is can we kind of put something like this together, say in about 6 months when COVID-19 is a little lighter and our state is boiled down? We've been notified by our state EOC. We're going to be open. The state EOC is going to be open through probably the end of July. So we're going to be, even him and I and several of the others, we're going to be tied up for several months yet. So just toss it out there to you.
Yeah, I understand that. And we've run into that same situation, and because of COVID-19, we're having to deal with, some places across the country, just like yourself, that you're running active operations. You don't have time for much of a drill. So if there's not a whole lot of response out of Montana, I won't talk bad about you, believe me. So, at this point, I would love to say, yeah, we're going to do this again in October, but I'm going to wait and see what October looks like before we even think about something like that again. So yeah, I'm looking forward, quite frankly, to the next version of this and being able to put together something with a lot more meat on the bones than just what we're going to be able to do this time. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. And it's going to have to be after all of this pandemic stuff is over with.
Okay, thank you very much. I just wanted to drop that because he had asked me, and I'll let Ted know tomorrow when I talk to him on the conference that what you said. So appreciate your help.
You're welcome.
Okay, in WN3LIF, you got yeah, go ahead.
Okay, Dan. Very good. Can you hear me all right? Nod your head up and down.
Oh yeah,
Mike. Yeah, Mike. In preparation for the drill, I created 3 messages. Excuse me, sample messages with things that the local people can modify. They're based on the same messages that are in Part B. In their counties, any volunteer that wants to play a shelter can send these 3 messages to a county clearinghouse station. In turn, that county clearinghouse station will send them up to a section clearinghouse station. And from there, we'll probably, I don't know what. That's the question. I mean, we're going to have a ton of messages coming in. They're going to be on the forms, but there'll be an FL message. Do you want these messages sent to your divisional clearinghouses, or should we just count them and give you a total? What do you want?
At this point, we're telling the divisional clearinghouse stations, and honestly, I'm still looking for some people to be divisions clearinghouse stations. The Red Cross and I both are working on identifying those people as quickly as possible. And if you notice in one of the messages I sent out, I'm looking for someone to do New York, Pennsylvania, and New Jersey. So, once those messages hit the divisional clearinghouse, either in WinLink or in FL Digi or FL Message, they will take care of reporting them from there. That's the plan so far. So
okay, yeah, that's what I needed to hear, Mike.
Exactly what I want you to do.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to hear, because then at Part B, you'll have the traffic coming back down that we can fill in with just our playing stations for the Part B section, and we'll let our Part A section stations go. We're going to have a meeting with the Greater Pennsylvania region people tomorrow morning. Hopefully I'll be able to supply you with an answer for a Pennsylvania station or 2.
Okay, great. That's good. From here in Connecticut, I check into the Pennsylvania NBEMS net on Sunday mornings a lot of times. So we know it can be done. We just have to do it.
Well, then you talk to me as the one of the net controls.
Yep.
So thank you very much, Mike. You just answered all my questions. I'm very happy. Have a great day.
Okay, Marty, KB3MXM, go ahead.
All right, I'm going to just, for those who have never done this before, if you want to raise your hand at the bottom of the screen, when you put your mouse over the bottom of the screen, you'll see a button that says participants. If you click on that button, the right-hand pane will divide from text messaging or chat, and the top part will be the participant list. When that shows up at the bottom of the participants, there'll be two buttons, mute me, raise or lower hand. If that helps, then I'm glad all of you get to do that.
Thanks, Marty. And I will lower your hand then at this time unless you got a question. Okay.
One thing real quick, let me just add. So the meeting yesterday with Red Cross, Robert was on there and Wayne, and what was discussed, not yesterday, maybe the day before. What was mentioned was that they're going to use zip code centers to identify the red dot. That's as close as they're going to get. They're not going to get down any street addresses. That's what I was told. I was creating a map for them using that data, but then it got to be 178 people, and I didn't have the information from everyone. So they've decided to do it on their own. They're going to put red dots or locators in the zip codes of the participants. Thank you.
Yeah, the challenge with putting this nationwide map together is that, you know, when you fill out the registration form, you'll actually be able to put your address in there and it will show up on the map. If you don't want to put your full address, you can just put, you know, your zip code and it will populate that way. We wind up with so many red dots on the map, and we keep calling these red dots. I don't know what the hell they're going to be, quite frankly. But we would wind up, like, for instance, in the Los Angeles area or in the Denver area or in, you know, in Dallas, Texas, we may have a considerable number of red dots all in a given area. Here in Connecticut, I'm looking for quite a number of people to participate. So, you know, this is going to look more like the COVID-19 map than it is anything else when it's all said and done. And that, quite frankly, is what I want, because when we show this to the Red Cross, and I'm going to show it to the folks up at the League as well, because I'm lucky in that the League is an hour up the road from me. If they ever unlock the doors again, I'm going to take this directly to them. And we're going to show them this is what Aries did, and this is how we participated in a drill that was, quite frankly, thrown together at the last minute.
Well, Mike, I might add here at this point, by the time you get those doors open, the League will have seen this movie probably several different times.
I certainly hope so, Dan, believe me. I intend
Okay.
to make sure that they see it.
I do have a question.
Okay, Oscar.
Yeah.
Raise your hand.
Yeah, I know. Hi, everybody. I do have a concern, and just to be clear, we are with an event on parallel, and always a new event can happen. How we identify the practice or test messages from a real one? So definitely on the form, it should be used the proper form that it may say something. I don't want to put any restriction, but we should identify that those messages are for practice. It's a practice message that we want to be sending.
Anything for a drill should have a header across the top of the text portion of the message that says, "This is a drill. This is a drill." It should say that on all of the written messages that are passed. So we don't want to get this confused with any real-time messages at all. You know, we want to identify that, and we hope we'll put that into the suggested formats and all that kind of stuff.
As well, making a big effort that always in a drill can happen in a real one. So somebody should be overlooking on those drill messages.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Okay, Clem.
We had that problem up here in Connecticut a few years ago. We started our SET one bright and early Saturday morning, and by 9 o'clock, we already had 6 inches of new snow on the ground. So our SET stopped, and we suddenly turned over to real operations. So we've been down that road. We know how it works. And in Puerto Rico, I know you know how it works.
Okay, let's pick up Clem. Clem, take it away.
Yeah, I'm Clem, KH7HO. I'm the SEC for the Pacific section, basically Hawaii. And Mike, I appreciate talking with you yesterday. And what I did is I did talk with Red Cross, the regional headquarters in the Pacific region, and talked to the disaster manager. She is Ham. And I've worked with her in previous disaster and having shelter radio operators. So we have a pretty good working relationship. This is what we decided to do and kind of cover what we have discussed in our phone conversation. We're going to be using WinLink forms. There's 6 WinLink ARC, American Red Cross forms. But talking with her, we decided that we're going to be using the ARC 213 general form and the daily shelter report. However, being that hurricane season is around the corner for us, starting in June 1st to November 30th, this gives a great opportunity, even though short term, it's like a real emergency where we got to get shelter radio operators. And so being that hurricane shelters here in Hawaii do not provide any food, snack, water, etc. It's basically a floor, roof, and 4 walls. People have to bring their own emergency kit. We're going to, first of all, send out the 213 general message. It's the first of 2 that I will have our simulated radio operators working from their homes send out that the shelter is open. And in there, in the block, the message block, this is an exercise message. Whatever the message is, basically, we're opening our shelter, name of shelter, address, who the shelter manager, etc. And how many shelter workers are there, how many medical reserve corps workers. That's what they normally do. And this is an exercise message. And that's the first message we want them to send at little after 9 a.m. From 9 a.m. to 12 noon is our exercise for part A. About an hour later, we want them to send out the daily shelter report, but not fill in the shelter population. The operational report that says how many meals, breakfast, lunch, dinner, how many cots, how many, et cetera, because this is a hurricane shelter, not a post-disaster shelter or a fire evacuation shelter. And she agreed. So we're using those 2 of the 4. These forms are already in WinLink under templates. And we will use those forms. And she agreed that she will be the addressee, that the messages will go to her. So she has some idea. This is the first time introduction to WinLink. Even though we talked about it, she'll be getting the emails. And also the emails will be going to CC to me and also my assistant section emergency coordinator. So we're working out the details on that, but we're saying that at part A level, the local level, to forward the message by voice, FL Digi. Now that you're saying FF Digi is okay, any digital form, voice as well, we're encouraging WinLink to hub and spoke, because we want to make sure that in a real world situation, the gateways may be down. So they can forward it that way, and then the hub will have HF as well as VHF. Now we do have Vera FM, and we're encouraging the license, so it's very, very fast versus the free, slower one. We have Packet too, but Packet, as you know, is very slow. We have HF, Vera HF, Pactor. But the thing here is we want to exercise the best we can in this period. And this is a great exercise for us pre-hurricane season. So that's what we're doing. And Mike, as we discussed, I'll be the, the regional clearinghouse.
Correct.
And I'll send you a summary of the how many hams participate, how many messages, any problems. and I'll send it to you based on your emails to you and probably two other people. So I think we're almost there. I just have to send out the sample of the 2 forms to my DECs, and I think we'll be ready to roll in the 2 weeks that's left.
Well, Clem, I appreciate that. Just like when we talked with Illinois there just a moment ago, I think you guys have a great program already set up, and I'm not going to try and tell you how to do any of that. You're doing it just right now. So you do your local drill, and then we'll report from the clearinghouse end of it after your drill. So that's going to work just fine for me. And I got tickled the other day. I was late for a Teams call after I was talking with you. And my boss asked me, she said, "Where were you? What were you doing?" I said, "I was talking to a guy in Hawaii." And she thought that was hilarious. So
Thank you, Mike. So all we need is the email as to who we need to send the summary report to.
we'll take care of that. Don't worry about it. I'll get all of that to you.
Okay,
My
mahalo.
plan
Thank you.
is,
Oh, you
my
muted yourself,
plan
kid.
is a couple of days before the drill actually starts, like about Wednesday or so of that week. What I intend to do is start sending out bulletins to the reflectors so that you guys get an idea of, something, this is coming. We're setting up now. And then the morning of the drill itself, my intention is to send a message out to the reflectors early in the morning. And of course, with time zone differences, I'll send the message here at 6 or 7 in the morning Eastern time. You guys will wake up, and a lot of you will wake up, and it will already be in your emails. So we'll play with it the best we can.
Okay, Kevin, you're up. KABATAR.
Yeah, good evening or good afternoon, I guess. It's Kevin, KB8TAR, Michigan. Clem touched on a point I was wondering about, and it concerns Part B, not Part A.
Yep.
I tried, as a case in point, our WinLink RMS site that we typically use was down not a day and a half ago. So I'm a little bit confused on the expected path of the traffic for Part B to the higher regional levels. I guess what I was wondering in the back of my mind is that if it's not Winmore that is capability that's actually required.
Well, either one that's available. I'm not gonna say everybody has to use WinLink or everybody has to use Winmore. I will guarantee you that there will be some messages that will be delivered in standard email. So however works best for you. So if you have a gateway that's down and you can use another alternate method, by all means do it.
Okay, I don't see any more hands up. Oh, yes, I do. Hey, David. KM20, go ahead.
Thanks, guys. And we have an interesting situation. We volunteered early to participate. We've been in contact with the IT manager in our region at Red Cross, and he said, "Yeah, let's do this." And then, sounds of hands clapping, but not meeting each other. Nothing's been happening there. It leads me to the question is, well, I will reach out to the Red Cross again, but it seems that on the regional level, sometimes there's a less than enthusiastic response. I also have a suggestion that perhaps for an SET in October, that maybe we should have a national SET that does something like this. So I'll just leave that with you.
I think if we tried to do that this October on the heels of the pandemic, I'm sure Stephen Ewald's brain would explode. But I agree with you. I think that there should be more you know, the SET in my mind, we do more typically on our regional drills here in Connecticut than we do in the SET. So, you know, I'm all for ideas like that. I think this is, you know, this is a great opportunity for us to show what we can do, and it's going to be different everywhere. I keep saying that, but you know, what works in New England doesn't work in Wyoming, and what works in California is not going to work in Florida. We know that. So we can't just say, okay, this is how everybody's going to do it. It won't work that way. So we hope that, you know, if they ever get around to hiring some of those people at the league, they have a job posted for a new director of emergency communications.
Send him the messages.
Hmm?
I was just going to say, you want to get somebody's attention, send your exercise messages on your set to your division director in the league.
Yeah.
And they'll say, stop sending them. Oh, okay, you're getting them. That's good.
Yeah, that's you know, that's exactly what happens up here in New England. I send stuff to our division guy, and he says, "Yeah, this is great. You know, I don't have time to deal with this." So, you know, we'll see what happens. You know, honestly, I appreciate everybody. You know, I know there are questions, and I know that this is not going to be a perfect drill, but we're going to do the best we can, and I will help any way that I can. But you know, sometimes you have to deal the cards you got.
Well, you know, in reality, we don't have planned disasters. We just don't have them. And so we do what we got, the best we got, as if it was a real situation. Then COO has his hand up.
Okay, thanks. So in California, I think we normally have our hospital SET in the late October, early November, where the statewide they try to set up communications between hospitals. And I think we're particularly bereft of constructive Aries Red Cross relationships in this state. And this was initially received as, okay, here's where we're going to fix it. And I think it's been having the opposite effect. I'm just throwing that out there.
Dan, I would love to say that the relationship between Aries and the Red Cross is hunky-dory all across the country, but we all know that's not true. And you know, I think I would be a little naive if I said everybody wants to play well with other kids, but again, it's what we got.
I might interject here that every side of that fence, everybody says they got their stories, and they do. There's reasons to be unhappy, there's reasons to be happy, and we start with something like this, and we move it up. If we do well, maybe we could talk some of the Red Cross people to follow our lead. If they do some stuff, we can follow their lead. They're partners with us. They're more than an agency, they're partners. So we need to start building those bridges, and this is a good place to start.
You make a very good point, is that they are a collaborating NGO. They're not an AHJ. You know, when people start throwing language like that around, I just shiver. And so do everybody else that understands that they don't want to be a collaborating partner. They want to be an AHJ.
Yeah.
Well, but the fact is we got to do something. The whole thing is broke. The Red Cross is broke. The Aries is broke, but it's fixable. And all of us on all sides of the fence have got to fix it.
We're not finished being born yet. How can we be broke? We only date back to January of last year. Don't you know?
All right. Kim, you got your hand up.
Yeah, you mentioned, somebody mentioned about the SCT for 2020, and we're already starting to do some planning for that on October 3rd, 2020 for Hawaii. And it's again in the middle of hurricane season. And one of the things that we've done in the past, and I'm looking at doing again, is a shelter exercise to learn from this May 30th and come out with a better operating procedure, whatever. We already identified a couple to be assigned to the Red Cross headquarters to operate the radio there. and the Red Cross point of contact is very happy with that. So we're looking at fine tuning the May 30th exercise, learn from that, develop better procedures, operating procedures. The other thing is there's no shelter form. So I'm looking at working with her to develop a shelter, I guess we'll call it a hurricane shelter reporting form in WinLink, and hopefully have that form ready for the October 3rd set and use that form as possibly some other forms for reporting. So I'm looking at the May 30th as the initial proof of concept, as we discussed, Mike, and then the October 3rd SCT to be the exercise that we learned from this May 30th and fine tune it, and hopefully we don't have to have a real activation for shelters for this upcoming hurricane season, but at least we have some concept based on the May 30th, and then if the hurricane comes in after October 3rd, after the set, that we have exercise, a procedure, and we'd be better prepared and ready to respond as shelter radio operators.
You know, guys, there's an old Russian saying, and I learned this when I was in the Army, that they say the Volga River runs through the middle of Moscow. And the saying is that when the Volga is flooding, it's the wrong time for swimming lessons. So now is a great opportunity for us to do this kind of exercise and learn what we can, and try and take what we learn here into things like SET this fall and exercises over the next year or two to try and build the right kinds of processes in. We know there are forms that are on WinLink and FLDigi that may be outdated, that need to be updated. We know that, like I said, the Red Cross wants us to use their forms. We should be using ICS forms. We need to work on those principles. So once we have, a drill like this that we can start with, then we can build on it. We're never going to be perfect, but we can learn a lot every time we do it.
I might suggest at this point that this is a good starting point. Like you mentioned earlier, start out small, let's grow into what it is now. Let's grow it out farther. Let's take this drill, let's go to the league with it. Let's go to the Red Cross with it. And let's do a follow-up, whatever happens, what month, whenever we can do it. But let's do something that is organized by both sides working in concert with each other. And let's drive mend those bridges and make this thing work. Dan, you have your hand up again.
Yeah, so let's take it to the ARRL. Let's take it to the Red Cross. Okay, but does that happen on this exercise with either?
I think you'll find it will be, Dan. I know this thing will go to the ARRL. I'll make sure of that. There's others here on this meeting now is going to make sure that the ARRL will be very much aware of it. We have at least one person here on this as part of the ARRL, and people that have ties that will also use this same thing. So I think we've got the place to do it. It's got to start someplace, and this is it.
Yeah, typically, guys, when the world is not locked down, I'm at league headquarters myself every month or two for different things, and I work closely with a lot of the guys over there. So I'm not going to say I'm the guy that's going to change the world, by no means, but at least we're not going to let them forget about us. I'm a big proponent of Aries needs to have a better voice at the league.
We're hoping for that new management, new changes there. That's hopefully it's going to happen. It does need to happen, and that's one of the things this group is going to have. There is no one solution. There is no one hero amongst us all. Together we can make things happen, and that's what I think we should be working on. I'm tossed between Marty and Jim. I don't know which one had the hand up first. Let's go with Jim first.
Thank you, Dan. Well, I guess a question and then a comment. First question is for Clem. You mentioned, and I couldn't quite hear the end of what you were saying, but you said there was not a shelter form in WinLink.
Yes, under Red Cross, hurricane shelter form. It's just it's called a daily shelter report, and that is like an ongoing shelter, like a post-disaster shelter or like a wildland fire shelter where it's set up a shelter. So that form is not appropriate, but we will use that for our exercise on May 30th, and I'll be working with Red Cross to develop a hurricane shelter form for Hawaii and put a template under the state of Hawaii and WinLink.
Thank you. I missed the nuance between hurricane shelter and run-of-the-mill shelter. Sorry. The other thing is I have a comment. Certainly uneven relationships in all the states between Aries and Red Cross. Here in Tennessee, our Red Cross CEO is a ham. We have a lot of good intentions from the Red Cross folks toward amateur radio. In Knoxville, for example, we have 5 complete boxes that have been provided by the Red Cross, and our Aries people operate those for them. But I'm concerned that with the lack of an emergency manager at headquarters and us participating in the exercise, the Red Cross could end up with an expectation that a map with red dots on it equates to the magnitude of help they might be able to count on in any particular circumstance. But as we all know, there's a lot of paperwork, relationship building, and various other things that will have to go on before that becomes a reality. So I just hope someone's keeping an eye on that facet of it as this thing unfolds. We definitely plan on participating here in Tennessee.
I'm tickled to hear that. I'm glad to see a lot of states are jumping up and saying, you know, we're not sure exactly, you know, how many we're going to have, but we're going to participate and we're going to be part of this. And, you know, most of us that are involved in Aries across the country are waiting to see, you know, who's the new CEO going to wind up being for the league. And as I mentioned, there's that other position, that the emergency coordinator, or emergency director, that position is going to be, you know, I think very important for Aries going forward.
Okay, Marty, you got your hand up. Go ahead.
So there is there's an annual meeting of the National VOAD. I've attended this meeting before in DC, and had a great conversation with many of these organizations who shared with me that their knowledge and use of radio communications is non-existent in many cases. They don't find themselves typically in where there is no communications, and they depend heavily on their cellular devices. They don't find themselves actually in the, you know, they're not in the path of the tornado. They're not in a remote area. They're on the periphery, away from the disaster area, to support those disaster survivors as they're brought out. So of saying that, I felt that it would be a good opportunity, and certainly would be interested in leading an effort to digest all of this. And you say about going to the league, I would say, well, we are already the league. I mean, look on the screen, guys. This is the league right here.
Yep.
Perhaps maybe putting it together and giving it as a presentation to the National VOAD. And so by working it that way, what you end up with is you end up with a collegiate effort of our served agencies then will be behind us as we go to the league and say, you know, these are organizations that could, and I use the term umbrella when it comes to to disaster communications, because much like an umbrella, you only open it when you need it, and then you close it and put it away. So disaster communication, RF communications, is only needed when it's needed. So I would be very interested in maybe coordinating some of that with you and putting together the presentation, the slide deck for the next National WOAD conference. Back to you.
Go ahead, Mike.
I was going to say that that sounds great. I've attended several of the WOAD meetings. Most of them are conference calls up here in Connecticut, but yeah, I think that's a great idea. And the more representation we can get, the better off we're going to be.
Well, I think it was Dr. Thelma. I remember her first name. I believe it was her first name. When the presentation was given 2 years ago, and there was someone from the ESF2 community who provided a very comprehensive overview of radio communications, especially in disaster situations. And the thing that came from that was the understanding that I think across the entire ESF2 community is you have blue skies and gray skies. What I mean is, on a blue sky, all of your repeaters that are full power and all of your towers at a maximum height. Yes, I said Oscar shaking his head. He knows what I'm talking about. And then under gray skies, towers are like half their height and they're only about half their power. So, or no power at all. You know, it's like basic stuff. So clearly we are also at risk when it comes to providing communications at a local level. I mean, take California and the wildfires that wiped out all the towers. There's always that possibility that we'll be threatened too, and we'll be limited along coastal areas. We'll have degraded service. There will be situations where ham radio will not be the most beneficial service to our served agencies, and we need to recognize that. With no reason for us to run into the burning house here. So I'll say this: if you want to put together a slide deck for the next national next national WOAD conference, let me know.
Okay.
I'll take that on. Thanks. Bye.
I get tickled. I've actually had folks up in New England tell me that you know, now that we have FirstNet, we don't have to worry about anything else. All that stuff's going to work. And I just shake my head and walk away.
Oh, everybody's got to, hey, look, and Oscar knows this. Everybody in Puerto Rico is like, pass out satellite phones.
Yeah.
And I saw a guy with a satellite phone standing underneath a carport, and he can't figure out why he can't talk to FEMA.
Yeah, that's because in Hollywood that they have people standing indoors using their sat phones.
Oh yeah, there you go.
Talking on the other side of the planet. Yeah, it's
there you go.
We all know how that crap works. So
that's why it's got a hinge. That's why it's got a hinge on the top. It's not broke. One lady said to me, "Oh, the phone's broken. Look, the antenna bends over. It's broken." All right. Thanks.
Let's move this up to Kim. Kim, go ahead and take it. You got your hand up. Kim?
I thought you said Tim. First of all, I heard somebody mention about before I had Hawaii State VOAD, we have representation there. And what has happened with the COVID-19, there've been through VOAD, been establishing pods, pod of distribution to pass out food for the people here, especially on Oahu, and they're doing it on the neighbor islands as well. But here on Oahu, we had an opportunity with 3 pods, 2 of them that required amateur radio. In fact, there was one this past Saturday at BYU Hawaii in the North Shore here on Oahu. And we had 8 radio operators there providing communication because the line of traffic of cars was very long. And we had something similar to that earlier, about a month and a half ago at Ala Moana Shopping Center. So this is where we demonstrate amateur radio can be utilized in a non-emergency situation, especially with VOAD. And one of the things that I've asked them that, in gray scale, in blue skies, use cell phones, internet, landline phones, But what if we have a hurricane category 3, 4, 5 in Hawaii? How are you going to communicate? So fortunately on Oahu, we haven't had that situation except on Kauai in 1992 with Iniki, where amateur radio was initially the first few days with the primary means of communication. But that was a long time ago, and people here forget, and they don't realize until they have no communication. But the point here is to show that amateur radio is a viable means of communication in a non-disaster, non-emergency communication, and we can show that in Hawaii State, in WOIAD. Yes, some of them have their license, but not enough of them. And they're not trained as MCOM people. They just got their license. Hey, I got my license. Maybe I have a radio, and that's it. They have not been on any nets, not been any how to transmit traffic, etc. But it's a step in the right direction. We got to train them, etc. So that's I think that's a good idea for that person to put together something, especially what happened on the May 30th exercise. How many hams participate? How many traffic? That's a first foot in the door to show that Red Cross, which is a member of WOIAD, can start from there, and then Salvation Army and Catholic Charities and all the other NGOs, faith-based organization. So it's a foot in the door as a start.
Thanks, Kim. I might throw something in here. There's a lot of the sections and states, and some of the states have more than one section, of course, but they don't have disasters. They just don't. And trying to get people to participate, trying to get people to do something or take it seriously. These kind of exercises with the Red Cross, and if we can expand it out to other agencies on a national level, helps those states get going, get their people in gear, having something meaningful to work with. Okay, Mike, go back to you.
Yeah, it's, one of the things that it actually came up in an after action report here in Connecticut not long ago was one of our guys actually said the biggest problem we've had is that nothing has happened in Connecticut in a few years. So we haven't had those major ice storms. We haven't had those hurricanes. We haven't had that kind of weather that shuts us down. The last big statewide, basically, power outage we had was about 8 or 9 years ago. So guys forget. So we got to keep them busy, and we've got to keep them interested in order to keep our operators interested, as well as keeping all those other agencies interested before they give up and start thinking that FirstNet's going to solve all their problems. So.
Okay, we got Dave, KM2O. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm from one of those states that doesn't have disasters, but these are my souvenirs from Hurricanes Irene and Sandy, where I staffed shelters. In any event, I just wanted to get back to the WOIAD discussion, and I would encourage any of you to get involved in your state WOIAD and your local COADs. I now am part of a local tri-county COAD, and I've got Red Cross people, and I've got the emergency director of Catholic Charities, who is now trying to get their licenses. So the unlikely partners, but you really, really should consider bringing them into our herd.
Well, I think that was words well spoken there. We have a lot of work to do, and this is a good start for what we're trying to do on all sides of the fence. Mike, you've done a great presentation. Is there anybody else that has anything to say?
Can I make a comment?
Well, Oscar, you would always make a comment.
We were looking something to motivate people for field day. And this activity actually is motivating a lot of people. And we can utilize it as well. So this is what we have to tell to our section to do this kind of practice.
That's great. I love to hear that. We always hear those guys and we have, the fellas now, because of field day challenges this year, that oh, we're not going to score any points, or we're not going to do that, or, and we keep preaching that field day is not a contest. Field day is an exercise. It's an exercise in emergency communications. That's where it came from. So use field day as an opportunity. Use this event as an opportunity to get people to actually do something instead of sitting at home and checking, sitting in their easy chair with their HT and calling out to the local repeater. Let's do something a little more than that. One of my plans for field day is I'm going to be sitting right here at home. Now, I happen to live at 1,000 feet above sea level on top of a mountain in Connecticut, which is fairly unusual. And I'm going to be tuning my 2-meter radio to 146.52 and serving as the station for our local radio club here. The guys that only have a technician license and only have a Beofong radio, they can actually make a local contact, and we're going to use that as an internal contest for our club, the worked all members kind of thing. So we got to find ways to motivate the operators, and this is the best we're going to do right now.
I think it's a good start. Anybody else got their hand up? Let me take a quick look. I don't see anybody else. Anybody else got any comments? Anything to add, subtract, or multiply? Well, gentlemen, yeah, go ahead.
Let me add one thing. Dan. And I have my SEC online tonight, so I'm going to brag a little. Okay. So Jim and Wanda have been working the hospital coalition for years, and that's a tough nut to crack. What was recognized in Puerto Rico, and hopefully Oscar backed me up on this one, was that once the communications went down, hospitals became almost isolated. They didn't have post-op, they didn't have lab, they didn't have any of those things, and they were literally at the bottom of the mountain and the cell tower was at the top, and communication stopped. And Jim and Juan has been doing an absolutely superb job in getting that hospital coalition. We have hospitals throughout this area that now have radio equipment embedded in them, and they do regular exercises. And any one of your hams, from tech to extra, advanced to novice, it doesn't matter, could participate. So while we're talking about VOADs, let's talk about the medical hospital system too. I think there's opportunities there. Thanks, Dan, for having the meeting tonight, and everyone have a good night. Bye.
Well, thanks. Pete, you got your hand up. Oh, got a couple people here. Dan's got his, okay, Pete, take it away, and then we'll catch Dan.
Yeah, I wanted to comment on the 2-meter simplex there. I think this was probably 10 or more years ago, but there was an organization, a club in central New York, and they did a 2-meter FM sprint. It was like 10 o'clock to 2 o'clock Sunday afternoon or something. I think it was the most fun thing I ever did. And the cool thing was, everybody was just there with their mobiles or HTs or get up on a hill or something. And I agree. If you can get that going, maybe during field day or whatever, and get the technicians who really can't do any contesting engaged, I think that would be a really great thing to generate enthusiasm.
That's good, Pete. I like that. I like it a lot. Dan, go ahead and take it.
Well, I just wanted to thank Gary for stepping into the breach and let him know that by this time next year, hopefully, Aries will be able to pull off something that'll put thousands of red dots on their map. It just so happens that we had someone spontaneously spring an exercise in this section for an NVIS contest on June 6th. And
Cool.
That works. I can imagine that's, actually, I think it probably already is spreading to sections around us. And if we can just sort of coordinate that with an actual legitimate NIMS planning process, the results of which could help coordinate future training and collaboration with the Red Cross, and the investment in which would be useful for every AHJ in the country, or the state in this case. That's kind of where I'm coming from about it. And I suspect there's some other folks here listening that are grinning right now. So I got to go over to the other two virtual meetings that got scheduled at 6 p.m. one of which looks like it's got another 20 minutes or half hour. The other's got another hour left because it was a 3-hour meeting. But I appreciate what everybody's doing to contribute to making things better. And I just have personal reservations because of, well, I used to be a Red Cross volunteer, my wife and I, and we had to spend a night in a Red Cross shelter. But dealing with them technically and administratively is like training a dog that just won't be trained. They have what they want to do, and we could easily mesh our respective skills, but there seems to be resistance at the highest levels in the Red Cross to that. And if we can get through that, I can see this being, I can see there being 2 or 3 national exercises with different communities, the Red Cross, a national hospital exercise. Boy, would that ever go well, etc. So I don't mean to sound negative, but I'm a grouchy old guy, and I've been burned a bunch. So I'm trying to be real careful with our section now. 73, all of you. I'll listen to what you have to say before I check out. Thanks.
Dan, I appreciate that, and I'm with you. I'm skeptical every time the Red Cross tells me this is how we're going to cooperate with anyone. So it's my intention, my ideal intention is to say we're going to have an ARES event. We're going to have an ARES drill that's a nationwide drill, and make it so that the Red Cross wants to come to us and say, we want to participate in your ARES drill. That's where I would love to see us. And one other point that I want to make for you guys, Dan keeps calling me Gary, and actually my first name is Gary. And if you look me up on QRZ, it'll say Gary Walters. I tell people the only people that ever called me Gary was the Army and the IRS. So everything you'll see has me listed as Mike, and that'll confuse people if you start calling me Gary, believe me.
Oh, SOD, my apologies.
No problem.
All right. Well, Mike, I hope that you'll follow up some literature that we can get out to everybody on the reflector and such, keep everybody into a common fold here. I see lots of good things happening. I think we all do. We've all had our experiences, good, bad, and indifferent. I'm an ex-Red Cross volunteer myself, and I've had my disgruntled moments. But the thing is, they have too. They have their needs, and they have their problems, and they have their stories about hams. So we need to make a bridge and make it work. Is there anything else out there, folks?
Dan, I'd like to make one more appeal before everybody starts shipping off, and I see we've already lost a few people, but if we have anyone who is interested in being one of those regional clearinghouse stations, it will be a little bit of work, but it will only be one day that you'll have to deal with it. So if anyone is interested in being one of those regional clearinghouse stations, please let me know. And we'll make sure we get all the information that you could need to do it.
I might add that this video will be going out to a lot of the hams that couldn't make it tonight. There's another Zoom thing going on at the same time we are for hams. So if you are watching this video and such, that same thing goes out to you. Let us know if you've got interest in doing that. And I hear somebody else in there. Somebody else want to say something?
Okay, have a good night. Talk to you later. Love you. Bye.
We love you too, Barry. Okay, we'll on that, we'll say 73s, everybody, and have a real good night.
That was my mom that was on the phone.
Okay.
Oh, 88s to moms everywhere.
Hey, thank you, Dan. You're a superlative moderator. I'm afraid of you.
Oh, I don't know about that. I'm learning every time, and I screw up every time, and I learn from my screw ups. So you got the idea.
Well, the ethos is a continuing educational program, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Yes,
lifelong learning.
That's it.
All right, 73s, everyone. And Mike, appreciate you coming on. You did a great job in a short notice. Folks, I called him at the last moment to ask him to do this, and I think he's done a great job.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it. I look forward to getting this one behind us and getting a good after-action report out of it and taking it to the next level.
Will you be sharing the after-action report with us? I think that's going to be fascinating. I mean, we'll all learn a lot.
Once the after-action report is done, I'll put it on the reflector. I'm more than happy, warts and all. I'll put it out there.
No warts in an after-action report. Is it going to be an ARIES after-action report or a Red Cross after-action report?
There will be, whether the Red Cross does one or not, there will be an ARIES after-action report.
Well, that's making lemonade, man. Thank you.
All right, everybody. We're dropping them like flies right now. So I'm going to say 73s and pull the plug. You guys all have a good weekend coming up. Talk to you later. Bye now.
Bye, guys.
Good night.
73.